Hello, everyone, and welcome to the newest episode of the Jay Davis Show. I'm super excited for the guest today, Jonathan Booz. He is the founder and CEO of Wurkin Stiffs. We were already talking so much before. We were like, we should actually start recording. We're having too much fun. So, Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on, Jay. Appreciate being here.
Yeah. Well, we were kind of reconnecting because we'd connected in the past and talking. I would love, let's have you give a quick background of kind of what got you to where you are today. And then I would love to dive into some of those lessons that we were talking about, just some of the challenges of ecom that are coming up and how you're learning from them. So let's start with kind of how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, so 2005 is when I invented the magnetic collar stay. So it was literally, I was running late for some dinner reservations I had with my wife, and I've told this story many times. People may have heard it, but the collar, I put on a shirt that she had just bought me, and I looked like John Travolta from Saturday Night Fever. The collar was all flop, and I kept on saying, "Man, if the collar was just sitting here and not here." Literally, quickly in the mirror, I come up with this idea of magnetically pinning down the collar because I had a badge from a dealership that I worked for where, like a magnetic badge where you put the badge on front instead of pinning through it. And that's kind of what started it. 2006 is when it took about a year to kind of develop it and, trying to find the right partners. Don't know how to manufacture it. So you're learning all these things. I know more about magnets today than I ever knew I would. And all these things. But it took about a year, and we had a product sitting in my garage at the time. And my wife, we had our firstborn. And so when she went back to work, I got a phone call from her crying. They threw her a big party, and she's like, "I don't think I want to go back to work." I'm like, like, what are we going to do? I'm like, well, we got the collar stays in the garage we can sell, So we literally, when developing and all this stuff, we literally started out of our car. We went from one men's specialty store to the other. And these were stores that I didn't shop in. I mean, I couldn't afford to even look through the window of the store, let alone go in. But I would send Amy would go in, my wife, she'd go in, and my son at the time, our son was 10 months old, and he was buckled in the car. And that's how it started. We went from one specialty store to the next. And then that was in August of 06. And then come January of 07, we went to our first trade show in New York. Again, we're green. We don't, we're just from one foot in front of the other. And at that show, we got, we kind of attained about 60 men's specialty stores. And that's kind of what began the process of Wurkin Stiffs. And we had one product at the time, which was this magnetic collar stay. And like a couple of years later, is when the patent actually fully published. And at the time, the attorneys were, kind of yelling at me like, "Why are you going to market already?" And I'm like, "Well, how am I going to afford you people? Like, you guys cost me an arm and a leg." It's been, my background. I didn't go to college. I don't have like a business background. I was very entrepreneurial as a kid. I would sell candy in middle school, Red Hots in the winter and lemon heads in the spring. And I didn't even know what marketing was. You're just doing, and the joy of, making a little money, hustle. So that's kind of my background, is just, kind of like, getting things done. But my kind of true background, I was an insurance adjuster, believe it or not. And at the time when I started Wurkin Stiffs, I was a manager of a collision center that had they're franchised. So I was a general manager of 2 collision centers, peddling magnetic collar stays with my wife, and turned into a full-time gig. So that was 06, 07. And then in 2009 is when I met Nordstrom. So Nordstrom, by that time, we had about 300 men's specialty stores, and Nordstrom really put us on the map for a major. So yeah, then kind of like that kind of started having meetings with Saks Fifth Avenue, Bloomingdale's, Neiman Marcus. And then my first meeting in a cab in Manhattan going to see Saks Fifth Avenue, I get a phone call from the casting director of Shark Tank. So that was season 1 had happened. This was for season 2. And, so it was like all these like little stepping stones that were happening pretty, quickly from 06 to that by that time, it's the end of 2010. So you have like a full 4 years in. And then it's in our journey. But like I was talking to you before we were on air here, is that, we are a true B2B business. I mean, we have a .com? Absolutely. It was a one-page website that I built with a buy now button right on the front page. Like there was no like about us. It was just, we would get orders, and it wasn't until uncrate.com. I just started getting, we got 200 orders in one day. And I was like, what in the world just happened? And to find out that Uncrate did a little feature on us, and that kind of, that was turned into a life of its own. But, we were back in 2006, which sounds like 1906, but, there was no social media, like, these are just starting, right?
Oh, so, there's no Shopify. I mean, that's what people don't recognize.
Oh, please. Yeah. Oh man. Jay, those days, we did it with a buy now button through PayPal.
Yeah.
Email that says, you've got money. You got mail for like AOL, right? And to process these orders were so painful. Like I still have nightmares. Like I kind of believe you get 200 orders back then, and you're like, how many days is this going to take me to fulfill? Yeah. Now everything's so seamless. I like Shopify. Yeah. I mean, but it's interesting. I mean, COVID hitting and everything, so today e-commerce for us is very different than it was back then. And they see these challenges and these hurdles are very different today than they were even 4 years ago. The cost of acquisition, all this stuff has gone up. Yeah.
I love it. One of the lessons I love that you said, and this is one of the overarching themes of this podcast, that anyone who listens, every great company is someone sitting there saying, man, I hate this. I should fix it. And so anytime a friend comes or someone comes like, I'm thinking of starting a business, I'm like, you're already on the wrong foot, dude. Jerry Seinfeld has this great episode of Comedians in Cars where him and Steve Harvey are talking about, can you teach comedy? And Jerry Seinfeld said he got asked to speak at a college class on comedy. Like it's a class on how to become a comedian. And he said he walked in and was basically like, the fact that you're in here is a very bad sign.
Yeah.
Like you should just go do it. And I think that's what I love about your story, and hearing that is so fun. You just were like, this is a problem and I'm going to fix it. And it doesn't matter if you went to college. It doesn't matter if you have a business degree, if you're already been an entrepreneur before, who cares? Just do it. Just get started.
No, I agree. I think the thing is, there was an older gentleman at our first trade show I was telling you in New York, and he pulled me aside. He had to be like in his 70s. And he says to me, he goes, you're not from this industry, are you? I'm like, nope. And he's like, well, because if you were, you wouldn't have never got involved in this industry. And it's kind of, and I kind of understood what he's saying, because it's like, to think back when you don't know what you don't know, you just do, and you figure it out. And we've been very fortunate, and I believe in a work ethic. It's like, and you have to stay consistent, and you have to stay moving forward, and put out a good product. So for me, it's always been about, and I think I said this to you before off air, which is design first. So for us, like I care more about like, the quality of the craftsmanship. I always ask why do we do it this, or why do you do it that? Can we, and kind of really dive into like the quality of the product. Because after that, like, the product speaks for itself. We as a company have always had hurdles where, you'd go in and if the buyer was a woman and, selling menswear, it's like, a male buyer buying women's underwear for, it's like, there's like a disconnect. It's like, well, why do you need this? And it's like, well, let me show you, send it to, give it to your colleagues, give it to, your assistant, whoever. If it's a guy, give to him. And because even with men, for the most part, don't even realize there's a problem. They walk around, their collar's like all this way and that. And then when you put it in and you're like, and they're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe it. Look how much better I look. And it's that like little magical moment that happens. And it still happens to this day. We'll be at an airport and I'll see one of the, what we sort of like the Wurkin Stiffs guy. And I'm like, have you ever heard of Wurkin Stiffs? No. And I'm like, this is great.
Yeah.
For 17 years, like you want everybody to know who you are. But then again, when they don't, it gets you just as excited from when I started, because you're showing them, and then all of a sudden you have someone walking away like they don't even. It's not that they just look better, but they feel better, right?
Yeah.
There's like, and that's kind of like what we try to exude is like the sense of confidence,
Yeah. Man, I love it. Well, what if you, I mean, this is something we started getting into and we were like, we should just hit record. Talk about how your overall theory and strategy of how to build a business has changed, maybe especially in the last 5 years, but you can pull lessons from longer than that, but really tactical, because this is where I get with other entrepreneurs who run e-com businesses who also do wholesale and they're in multi-channel. I feel like this is where we all start geeking out with each other of like,
Yeah.
so how are you building your business? Like real tactical, not like very high level stuff, but tactical, real things.
So I'll say something I didn't tell you. I'll tell you a game changer for us. So we started with one product, and all we heard, when I say we, my wife and I, all we heard was, "You're never going to make it with one product. You're never going to make it with one product." And so what do? I start. I, I'm a designer. I've always designed, right? And I'm self-learned, and Illustrator and Photoshop, all these little, but I've expanded myself along, but I'm not formally trained. And I'll put that out. I'm not formally trained, but I've always had an eye for design. So when you hear these people, when you hear people telling you, and even buyers, when you have a successful product, oh, can you do tie bars? Can you do cufflinks? So I'm selling wallets and designing cufflinks and all these things. And I amassed a catalog. I turned into a men's accessories company off of one product. We had over 500 SKUs. And this is going back in about 2017. I'm going to these trade shows. I can see the landscape kind of changing. Everything's going a little more digital. You can kind of feel the climate in the room with the buyers. Everything, there's like this shift. They're talking about brands that are online that have no longevity. The perception is that they're bigger than what they are because they're doing a lot of ad spend. So there's like this transition thing going on. And the one thing that was making us the most money for the company, and all the research and development and all the travel and all the things was the magnetic collar stays. Was the one product that I not only, have a patent on, but I have successfully defended it against many small companies. I even went up against Amazon. So that one product was supporting everything I was doing. So strategically, I made the decision. I said, I'm going to unload all these SKUs, and I'm going to just sell the magnetic collar stays. And my right-hand man at the time thought I went cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. He's like, this is never going to work. So yeah, correct. 100%. 2018 was transitional because, I had all this inventory with like silicone bags and all this stuff I had designed over time. And there was stuff that I got knocked off with that I didn't have any IP around. Anyways, I have stories galore. But in all these stories had made me focus and say, hey, look, let's get real here on what's making us the money, and let's simplify the business. So I unload over 450 SKUs and zero into under 30 SKUs, which was all the magnetic collar stays. So 2018, after talking to your stores that you built relationships with and say, no, we're not doing that anymore. What about your wallets? No, cufflinks, no. 2019 was the first year that we went in very hyper-focused on the core product. And it changed. We had our best year in 2019 top line as well as bottom line. And it also changed with, the e-com business was catching up with our wholesale business. So we could see that happening over the years. But 2019 was the real year where it was like hyper-focused on the product we're selling because we were the leader in the product. It wasn't a Me Too product. Successfully have defended it over the years. And we're going all in on this. So it went well. We tested in Men's Warehouse and at holiday 2019. We were the number one men's accessory for Men's Warehouse. January of 2020, it was we were going to go into All Doors Men's Warehouse, All Doors Joseph A. Banks. My wife and I flew to California, met with the buyers. We're high-fiving each other because we're trying to get into mid-tier because we played so much into the thin air of Nordstrom, Neiman, and Saks, Bloomingdale's. We're now stepping into mid-tier. This is great. It's proven itself. And then having conversations with buyers of Kohl's and Target and then COVID hits. And that was like doomsday. So what it was March 16th, people are pulling purchase orders, everything, people are losing their jobs, people that you've become friends with and colleagues in business. And, I held on to my employees as long as I possibly could because I didn't think it was going to, COVID. I thought, it's going to maybe 2 months and that's it. Who knew it was going to be as long as it was? And, but I had to do business differently because it was like, I had about 12 people internally and my wife and I are looking at each other again. So like I was saying, we're not a startup. We became a startup. Like, and some of going back to what you were saying earlier about, just doing like, start a business. It's like when you go through at that time, I don't know, 13, 14, 15 years of business and you have all these stories, things become scary because you kind of look ahead a little more and get a little more strategic, not only because you have to, but because of your past experience. When you're green, you kind of like, you do it, but when the money gets higher and things are at stake, you kind of have to go, all right, how am I going to get from here to here? And you decide, yeah. And you kind of realize where maybe you were spending money frivolously. It didn't, not that the money didn't matter, but you're making a lot more. So you're spending. So then you start really figuring out like, okay, it reminded me when I started the company, like, how much are we spending for ink? How much, like, well, you're worried about ink and paper? Like, so you kind of, it was just a rethought. And then I go, well, how are we going to rebuild this company in a different way? Because all of a sudden the pendulum started swinging where e-com became the majority of the business. Never happened before. That wasn't it. It was, we had a great blend. So we started hiring out teams, really interviewing outside companies to try to be an extension of us internally and work with a smaller team internally to work with small teams externally to build the company in a different way. And a lot of that has come into, digital, kind of how we never had to have a better understanding of like Google AdWords and Amazon ads and, Facebook ads and, and all the ROAS and the tacos. All of a sudden, like some vernacular, look, I knew, but I never really vested myself anyway, because either I had a person that was kind of doing it, but the business never relied on, what I'm saying? So like the business, so strategically it was just like, all right, we've got to now get a new mindset. We got to kind of look at, what does this stuff really mean, and try to align ourselves with people that are going to help us row the boat in the same direction we want to go in. And that's some of that stuff's easier said than done.
So many great lessons in what you said. One of the things I really want to point out for anyone listening who's starting a business and getting going, because we went through almost the exact same thing at PillowCube. I mean, it was very similar. And we ended up last year, we bought a company for one of our other brands called StairSlide. We bought this company and added it into StairSlide. And the reason we were able to buy it is exactly the same reason. This person had built a business and they had a core number of SKUs that were just making tons of money, and that they were just inventing and spending all of the money left on trying to come up with thousands of SKUs. And it sunk the business because they weighed it down. And I think we did something similar. Luckily, we learned quickly at PillowCube, but we were doing the same thing. And I had this advisor who would always say to me, he'd say, Jay, there are still tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people who have never heard of your main products and never bought your main products. Don't forget that. So keep improving them, keep optimizing them, make them great, but don't be so obsessed with this idea of growth through launching new things. And I think that is such a common kind of mistake in mentality. And then so often it's exactly what you said. We have another friend who she'd kind of done the same thing. She just started launching stuff and we're like, wait, but that's the same as this other company and that's the same as this other company. But your core thing is amazing and so unique. And I think Wurkin Stiffs is such a great example of that. Is like the first time I saw it years ago, I was like, that is a brilliant freaking idea. Why did no one ever do that? I had the same name tags. I had retail jobs where I had that magnet on my chest. I should have had the thought. And so I think that's such an important lesson for entrepreneurs. It's like learn from people who have gone through it and made this mistake. I think that's such a common thing. How have you shifted since then? What's been different now that you guys aren't constantly launching new things? How have you learned and kind of fine-tuned even that strategy?
So our focus now is to align with other companies, like-minded companies. Now, for us, it's shirts, right? It's to get Wurkin Stiffs and shirts. So our focus really is as an added value. So we know what works in store. We're usually found at cash wrap. So if at a Nordstrom, we're in the furnishings department, and the man or his significant others coming to check out, and we're almost like the pack of gum, right? Sitting there at cash wrap, it's like, oh, would you like fries with that, right? So and it's working, and so and I've seen it work with my own two eyes many times because I visit stores when I travel, and so you have that mouthpiece. So we're doing that digitally, right? So we're trying to really align ourselves not only with men's stores, because a lot of our stores are independent specialty stores. They're not e-com. They're going through the same type of knowledge transformation of getting on e-com, right? COVID really put a stake in the ground where, to survive, you had to adopt e-com. So a lot of the stores that we were talking to that would be like, oh, we would never do e-com, all of a sudden they're adopting it because they have to. For us, it's getting our product through the checkout process is where it really is magical for Wurkin Stiffs. It's when someone is putting a shirt, a collared shirt, it could be we do polo stays, which is a stick-on magnetic collar stain that goes through over like 100 wash and dry cycles. So for any shirt that has a collar, Wurkin Stiffs has a solution. And when it's presented to the customer through the checkout process as like an upsell or a pop-up, it's usually, the conversion rate is through the roof, right? So it's similar to in-store, just getting the mindset around it. The secondary version of that is aligning with shirt companies. So a shirt company that we do great business with is Mizzen and Main out of Dallas, Texas. Yeah, so Mizzen, they love Wurkin Stiffs. We've had a relationship for many years. But it's so funny. You see these early adopters and how much money they're making off of the product as an add-on value. And you're really trying to tell those guys like the Untuckits of the world or, the Republic and Collar, which I think Ben. It's like, God, yeah, you add Wurkin Stiffs to the cart or show the customer and it's bring up your average order value instantly. Right? You're going to increase your average order value. So that's kind of the shift for us is like really working with the stores as well as brands to place us digitally. We do blind drop shipping so that you don't even have to do any of the legwork. We fulfill for you, for the store, for the brand. That way there's no inventory stance. They don't have to, take any kind of money out for inventory. We try to take as many hurdles away. So strategically, that's kind of like where our mindset is like, how can we align? How can we partner? And how can we make it as painless as possible? And some of these, we will even work with, like you said, Shopify. Shopify is a platform we're on. We're very familiar with Shopify. So when someone has a Shopify platform, we have a seamless integration that we do a dropship model through. And we'll even go on the back end and set it up if need be. Because it's, at the end of the day, we're trying, it's a nice thing we're doing, but it's also benefiting us because the quicker we can get you onboarded, right, the quicker we're both making money. So yeah, that's kind of the strategies that we're doing over here because we know where we are. We are an added value product. So we try to have added value services as a brand.
Yeah, that is genius. And that's almost like, I'm sure you thought of this, but I think that's almost a bigger shift in thinking than, like, as you're saying that, I'm like, man, that's probably what we're going to be talking and thinking about e-com in 10 years is we don't all have to be the store. You can have these key, Mizzen and Main becomes the store, but then you can add in whatever you want and, things will get shipped from a couple different locations, or maybe they're all in the same warehouse by that point. And the warehouse is just saying, well, they ordered from Mizzen and Main, but they added on, Wurkin Stiffs and they added this thing and they added this thing. And and we're all working a little more collaboratively than maybe we have been imagining in e-com.
I think that you hit the nail on the head, because I had come up with a program, oh my goodness, 10 years ago, with the same kind of thought of warehousing, so that like the major stores, because they're shipping from all multiple locations, but if everybody was in like your collaborative instead of competitive, you can really kind of leverage the shipping, costs go way down if you can get that done. On the digital end of things, that's the idea. The idea is really the third layer for us is align ourselves with companies that we can also show on our site as a complementary product, such as, even a shirt or a wallet, or so that we don't really have to innovate those things, that we can actually, feature them to our customer base that we know that they would, gravitate towards, or introduce a new brand. And you can do it seasonally, or we can do it, as a long-term partnership. But that's kind of the things that we're looking at doing. Is it won't be a one-way street. Right now, it's kind of one way because we've got a small team. We're on an initiative getting this done, but we want to open up the door so that it goes the other way, so that we can feature those products on our site. Because there's great, as you know, there's so many great companies out there. Some are unknown. I knew like Dr. Squatch before. Oh my goodness, guys! I knew so back. Tommy John underwear. You familiar with Tommy? Yeah. So Tom Patterson and I used to walk the streets of Manhattan. How did we get to the next level? Now he's like going to be like a unicorn. Like I'm like, so it's like it's kind of crazy to see some of these brands that like, and kudos to Tommy and his wife Erin. I knew them before they were married. And, very focused individuals. And I think that's the key to some of this stuff is like if you start designing and making and doing R&D on all this other product, you're spending a lot of money and, more importantly, time and focus away from the product that's actually making the money. I think that's kind of where, the light bulb went on for me. And in this day and age of e-com, especially Amazon, which is like, the gorilla you have to do business with, right? We all have our say, whether we like Amazon or dislike Amazon, they're here to stay. But here's the thing, they're able to get you the best at what you do, right? So it's like, you can buy them. I don't need to make a Wurkin Stiff shirt. We were going down that path. We had a buyer. If you would do Wurkin Stiff shirts, that would be amazing with your collar stays. And we did. I spent 2 years going to factories and mills and learning about fabric and and it's like, let the people that I'm not in love with fabric. Like a good shirt, but I'm not that vested in it. So to me, I get more of a kick out of partnering with people and getting things done. And actually, for us, we're like that sleeper. Like, people don't understand how much business we do, because in the accessories category, especially with men, because men does, for the most part, don't like to get off their wallets, but those that do, in the accessories, it plays a small part of the overall buyer's, retail. However, if Wurkin Stiffs collar stay sells probably about 10 to 20 times more than a regular collar stay does on the floor. So to get someone, a buyer or whoever to kind of test it, and that's all we have. We just ask to test. We're like, hey, test us in how many stores you want or how many little you want, and see what it does for you. Because I don't want anything on your floor that's not going to perform. So we're just like that sleeper that all of a sudden people don't expect. You under promise and over deliver. That's kind of like, and the product doesn't, speaks for itself, so we're very fortunate, with the brand and with the product. So, I look back and think about all the time and money I wasted. I had fun. Don't get me wrong. I had fun, enjoyed designing, but at the end of the day, it wasn't paying the bills. It was actually online. It paid the bills. It wasn't bringing more money home.
Yeah.
More money home,
And that's an easy thing to get into, this mentality where the constant coming up with new ideas kind of becomes the payment instead of running a really profitable business. And I think that kind of is something that almost everyone needs to go through and have that challenge. But I love what you said. And man, that is such a great lesson. Because it's funny, even as before we got on today, I was like, I wonder if he's ever thought about doing shirts. And like, honestly, that's a stupid, naive question. But that's what's funny is like, it does I love that you've gone through this journey of like, I'm going to do belts and wallets and shirts and everything that people would probably naturally think is the way to go. And then all of a sudden be like, wait a second, there's a million people making shirts. There's so
Yeah.
many people it's a competitive market. Why don't I work with all those people? And I don't have to become the one-stop shop. I mean, this is something that, we get asked on Pillow Cube. People say, when are you going to do the Pillow Cube store? And I'm like, I'm never going to do the Pillow Cube store. And here's the reason why. When you watch someone shop for bedding, they don't like having to go to 10 places. They like comparative shopping. The whole joke that Mattress Firm is a front for money laundering is funny because do you know how many sales Mattress Firm needs to make a day to have a good store? 2. That's all they need. They need 2 people. And I can't remember the exact statistic, but it's like they have a very high rate of closing when someone comes in because they're like, I'm looking for a mattress. And then they walk in, they're like, wait, you have every company pretty much? Oh, I'll just buy it here.
Yeah.
And so they don't need 10,000 people going through their doors like most stores, or even 500 people. They need like 5 people a day. And so that's why they look like a money laundering front, because no one's ever there. But that's okay. And I think that it's exactly what you're saying. It's so easy to fall into that. Oh, now you have dress shirt collars, collar stays that are the best in the world. Now you got to do wallets. Now you got to do this. Now you got to do this. And you're saying, wait a second. No, I don't have to. What's a different route? And I would just love that. That's such a great lesson.
I think that's another thing is like I'm not naive to know, like, I never started this business going, I'm gonna make millions of dollars on a collar state. It was like that, right? It was what we've been able to do has been, even I have friends that tell me, I mean, look what you've done with a collar state, like how much money. It's like, but it's being the best. Like, I forget that it's magnetic. The work we use a German surgical steel. That's every one of our metal collar stays are hand polished. We go through hoops that no one else would go through for a collar. So I say, just when you compare a regular collar state to Wurkin Stiffs, on every level, we want it to be better, So, but it is interesting. Like, you're led to believe that you have to create this brand, and the brand has to be an apparel brand or an accessories brand to become successful. And then the other thing is, everyone's definition of success is different too. I mean, I'll be 49 this year, and my son is now, my firstborn, 17. He'll be 18 in a couple of months. And my daughter's 12. So I mean, that changes things too as you kind of grow up and life changes a little bit, and so success is different. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not still innovating. I've got other products that are in development, but it has nothing to do with Wurkin Stiffs. And I want to go about it differently. I kind of like, will I take the same exact path that I took with Wurkin Stiffs? No. I'm going to take the learning lessons I've learned to see if I can, do a shorter path. Because when I started this company, I was probably about 2-3 years in, and my accountant says, "What's your exit plan?" And I said, "Exit plan? What do you mean? What's an exit plan? It's you mean to die? What are you talking about?" He's like, "No, like with the business, I don't know. I'm just trying to make money, man. I don't know what you're talking about." As you get older, you're like, "Yeah, what's the exit plan look like?" And maybe there isn't one. But back then, not even knowing what an exit plan was to today, knowing what that means, which sounds very probably naive and stupid. I don't know. I mean, so is a magnetic collar stay, whatever. It's like you just do. But as you age, you're trying to help others. Like I get a lot of different emails, and I try to really help people out. Like, I don't want people to make the same mistakes I've made. But a lot of these things, you don't know everything about every industry. So there's always these little nuances, and somebody may see something differently. And that's the people that usually make a difference, because they don't see it the way everyone else sees it. And if you stick to your guns to it, good things happen. I don't take no very easily. I mean, I'll accept a no, but I don't. I can maybe understand it, this, then the other, but I don't let it stop me, because if I know that something can be done, and just because it doesn't exist or whatever, and I'm talking about feasible things, I'm not talking about transportation or something to another planet. I'm talking about like, there's, there's something that's going on right now, Jay, where I quickly on a piece of paper designed something for a company. I said, if you would just build this that looks like this, what I'm asking you to do can be done. They're like, that is genius. Never thought of it. I'm like, okay, there you go. I mean, like, I do it. Like, I don't, they're like, well, why don't you make it? I'm like, because I have no interest in that business other than to get the thing that I need done. You go passionate. I don't care. I just, I know you have to be passionate to get things done. My passion wasn't to do shirts. Do you walk down that path because it could probably make you some money and you have a lot of great ends that you can maybe be successful in getting it done? But there's a lot of headaches that come with some of that stuff. I'm very, it doesn't get more simpler than a metal and a magnet. I'm telling you, it's simple, and it's easy. Maybe your pillow cube too. It's simple. You know what I'm saying? You just have to find the niche that it fits in, and you work with people. And as long as they'll work with you, you're good to go. But not everyone, and maybe you've seen this too with your endeavor, is that maybe not everybody sees it your way. And you don't, and with .com and e-com, you can literally, you're the master of your own domain. You can say no because you can do it yourself if you want, So.
No, I love that. And I think that's something to be very careful of as an entrepreneur is you're going to get people who are like, that's not a big enough market. That's too simple. No one does it that way. We got that with Pillow Cube. Like, it's just one of our videos is making fun of that. How everyone's like, so it's just a cube pillow? And you're like, yeah, that's literally it. But no one has ever done it before. Not a single company has ever marketed and sold just a cube-shaped pillow that's square. I mean, it's just crazy. So, but those simple things, and that's something I love, and something I love about Wurkin Stiffs is that there will be guys who will pass that on to their children because it's so well made that it'll be like, hey, this lasted me 90 years. Yeah, now you get it. And I think
that is, I have friends like, you gave me those color shades. I remember when you started the company, they still have the same ones. I'm like, oh, maybe they're worth something. I'm like, man,
you're like, dang it, I did too good of a job. But I think that's so awesome, and that speaks to your ability to really have that attention to detail and want to make something that customers just love and are passionate about. And so I think that there's so many great lessons there, and man, it's so fun to just kind of see that progression and how things have improved over time and changed over time, and you've had to do the start over. But I think that's part of being in a startup is you have to kind of always be willing to like, yeah, I know we thought that last year. Now we've learned and grown and realized it's different.
Yeah, 100%. I think you have to be willing to look at the numbers and really make some hard decisions that maybe you wouldn't have made a year ago because today's different. And even talking to my son, who's, like I said, he's almost 18, and he has ideas and stuff. And it's like, and it's so funny because I look back and you see these companies, or you see movies, right, where the son wants to take over the business and he has all these ideas and that'll never work. And you start becoming that guy. I'm like, man, it'll work. But now I'm like, hold on, the world's different. TikTok, Instagram. Like, I personally, we have stuff up for the business, but I personally don't get involved in all that just because, I'll go down rabbit holes I don't want to go down. I'll be TikToking all day, whatever they do. But my son, he's very well versed and has an understanding. He actually has an innate business mind. He's very I'm like, man, he reminds me of me. And he's 17, 18. He's trying to figure out what he wants to do in life. And I'm like, you have time. I'm like, I was 31 when I started Wurkin Stiffs. I'm like, Aiden, you have time to figure out. So it's interesting. It's definitely you have to be realistic when it comes to the times changing. And like I said, COVID, who thought? I never thought. I tell people 2020 ended up to be fetal position year. Like, I'm like, oh my God, it wasn't until 2021 is when I kind of put my big boy pants back on and said, okay, you got to get back to work. Like life's different. I kind of had it easy for a couple of years, I had a good life, but now it's, I got to do the grind again. But you know what? If I wasn't passionate about what I do and didn't love it, I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't, so, and we're still, today, we are back to like pre-COVID, but like I said, the business looks differently. E-com is a major player, and we're just trying to figure out the next, kind of the next steps. And really, when you make a decision, kind of, go all in on it. And don't be foolish about it, but you really have to put the time in. I always talk about in here consistency. It's like, if you, with anything, a lot of people are trying to start a side hustle while they have a current employment. And then at what point do you jump from current employment into your side hustle, But if you're doing it, if you're doing it Monday and then again on Friday, for me, I was doing it every night of the week. I'd come home, and then I'd keep working through the night, keep working, and I had, maybe 4 or 6 hours worth of sleep on a good night, because I had my day job. But you have to stay consistent, because if you don't stay consistent, it doesn't grow legs, in my experience. I mean, I don't know, maybe lightning hits, but not for me. It was just, it's literally putting one foot in front of the other and staying at it. So I had to redo it in 2021. It was like, okay, you got to get in the office every day, because my life wasn't in the office every day, but, and we're able to dig out,
Yeah. Man, I love it. That is just so true. I was thinking as you were saying that one of my favorite quotes is Ryan Holiday says, you have to get to the point where the work is the win. And I think that's the difference. Your accountant's like, the win is eventually the exit strategy. And you're like, no, the win is the work. Like, that is what I love and am passionate about.
Yeah. And that, Jay, I think that's the other thing I tell people. Money is a byproduct. I believe money is a byproduct of doing a good job. I never started like, oh, I'm going to make money. It was, I mean, you want to make money, you have to live, but it wasn't like, that wasn't at the front of my brain. Like, oh, I'm going to make all this. It was like, look, put in the work, love what you do. And what are you going to do? You end up working. I think people have misconceptions. I'm going to go work for myself and I'm going to work less. No, you actually work more. You work, but you love it so much that, my hobby, my kids will tell you, what's your father's hobby? Wurkin Stiffs. I mean, I don't have a hobby. Like, it's business, and it's not that I just love it. I love design. I mean, I guess really, like, I love packaging. So I'm a package. I will buy product, not for what's inside, but for the packaging itself. And usually when the packaging is that good, the thing inside is equally as good. That's kind of a little thing of mine. Is like, I collect packaging just because I can appreciate it. Something, that kind of allures you to buy that thing. What makes, because when you're talking about Mattress Firm, right? And you're like, no one's here. But when you have that, when you don't have a salesperson there, what's going to speak to that customer to get them to pick you up? And it, 9 times out of 10 is the packaging. So I'm not affinity for it.
Love it. Well, this has been such a fun episode. Time has flown by. Usually I say we shoot for 20 minutes. We're approaching 50. I love it. So fun. So many amazing lessons that I've learned personally. Listeners can go to wurkinstiffs.com, right?
Yes.
And get yourself some collar stays that are the best collar stays on the planet.